Welcome back to Real Talk with Terry, and we have Judge LaDoris Cordell here, and we're just going to pick right back up where we started. And I just want you to elaborate or talk a little bit more about consensual encounter and detention so that people know the difference between when something is a consensual encounter and perhaps when they're being detained.
All right, so this is an issue that everybody should know about. So the police, let's say a police officer stops you. Let's say, Terry, you're sitting in the park, you're reading a book, it's the middle of the afternoon, a police officer comes up, and let's say I'm the officer, and I go, hi ma'am, how are you?
I'm good.
You be the person, okay. Great, so what are you doing here?
I'm just here reading a book.
How long have you been here?
For about 20 minutes.
Really? What's your name?
My name is Terry.
Do you live near here?
I do, actually.
Yeah? And what kind of work do you do?
I'm an author.
Okay, so I'm going to stop here. So far, you've done everything right. You've been, you didn't argue. You've been very reasonable. But I'm going to ask you, Terry, how did you feel with this officer questioning you? I guess I asked you about 5 or 6 questions. How'd you feel?
I started to feel uncomfortable.
Why?
Well, because I felt like he was asking questions like, why is that any of your business if I live near here? And
so you're feeling like I'm sitting here minding my own business,
Absolutely.
and now I'm asking these questions. What's this all about?
Yes.
So here's what just happened between the officer and you was a consensual encounter. And that means any officer can come up to anybody and start a conversation. And if you answer back and, just talk, oh, it's a nice day, how are you doing? That's a consensual, meaning you're consenting to talk, officer's consenting to talk, all right? So now let's go back to you're sitting in the park, I'm the officer, but this time I want you to say, I don't want to answer any more questions. Can I go now? All right? All right.
Okay.
So, Terry, do you have family here in the area?
I do.
Great. So, where are you going to go after you leave the park?
I don't want to answer any more questions.
Okay. And then say, may I go now?
May I go now?
Now, if I, the officer, say to you, of course, yeah, it's nice talking to you, officer walks away, or you decide to take your book and go home, that's the end. That was a consensual encounter.
Okay.
We agreed to talk to each other, and then we left. Now, ask me those questions again about whether or not you can go, and you don't want to answer any more questions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't want to answer any more questions. May I go now?
No. The minute an officer says no to you, you no longer have a consensual encounter. That officer has just said, no, you can't go anywhere, which means you are now being detained. Now, under the law, a detention means an officer can temporarily keep you from going anywhere. And in the duty manual in San Jose, that temporarily means no more than about 20 minutes, right? So it could be 2 minutes, it could be maybe 20 minutes. So in order for an officer to detain you, and this is all in the duty manual, and it is the law, an officer must have a reasonable suspicion that you are engaged in criminal activity.
Okay.
That is the only reason for a valid detention. So what did this officer see just by talking to you? Well, first of all, let's back up. Why would an officer come up and just make conversation? Officers do that because that's how they investigate. Sometimes they'll come up to a group of people and have a conversation, but the whole time they're kind of checking things out. So we're back in that role play. I'm the officer. When I looked at you, Terry, and again, this is just a role play, I saw you were nervous. I saw that your pupils were dilated. I saw they were kind of red, and I smelled some weed. So that said to me, maybe there's somebody here who is, and you, by the way, you kept, again, this is just role play, you kept, putting your hand like down towards your pocket. So I'm thinking as an officer, I have an officer safety issue here, maybe she's got a weapon in her pocket, or maybe she has drugs because I'm smelling something. So for those reasons, an officer could detain you without even telling you at this point, right? So the next thing, the question is, can the officer then lawfully search you without a warrant? And so the answer to that is yes. So the law basically says no one can be subject to reasonable search and seizure, by the police, all right? So the question is, would it be reasonable for an officer to search you on these facts? And the answer is the officer can order you and need you to stand up, and then the officer can search, do a pat search. Now, pat search means not go in any pockets, not go in any clothing, but just on the outside. An officer can do a pat search based on this scenario we've been talking about, right?
Right.
The next question is, can the officer go, let's say I feel something, I'm pat searching you, and I feel something that could be a knife, I don't know, and I'm feeling another pocket, it could be a bag of marijuana, I don't know, right? Can the officer then seize it without a warrant? Do I have to go get a warrant before I can go in your pockets? On these facts, the answer is no. The officer has every right to go in your pocket based on everything I've told you now, and if you have a knife, then the officer now has probable cause to arrest you. Wow. Because not all possessions of knives are illegal, but your knife was illegal because it was a switchblade. All right? So the officer now can arrest you, right? So now, because you've been cooperative, this officer may decide, no, I'm not going to handcuff you and put you in a patrol car. I'm going to give you a misdemeanor citation. It looks like a traffic citation, and all you have to do is sign it. And by signing it, you're just agreeing to go to court to fight it if you want to fight it, right? Okay. So you sign it, you sign it, I give you the citation, and then we're done. Officer leaves, you now have a citation for misdemeanor possession of a knife.
Awesome.
Or marijuana, right? So the question then is, have you been arrested? What do you think? I mean, have you been arrested? Did I arrest you on that?
That's a great question. I would say I haven't been arrested, but I was detained.
So you would think, so you were detained, correct?
Yes.
And arrested, most people think, okay, handcuffs, and that didn't happen to you.
No.
But get this, when an officer issues a misdemeanor citation, that's an arrest. You now have an arrest record. That's how quickly you can get pulled into the system.
Wow.
All right, so you walk away with a citation, you're thinking no big deal, you have an arrest record. You're now in the system.
Wow.
Right. So these are the things that's important for all of us to know.
Absolutely.
And all of it's in the duty manual. You can look up detention, probable cause, consensual encounter, it's all there. Right.
Could you just talk a little bit about what exactly is a duty manual, and how do we as the general public even access a duty manual to know what's in it and how we can use it to help protect ourselves?
Great question. So every police department, these 18,000 that I've mentioned, has a Bible. Now, they don't call it a Bible, but what I mean by that, it's a book of rules, and they call them by different names. So in San Jose, it's called a duty manual. It's all the rules that police officers have to follow. So in San Jose, that duty manual is over 600 pages, all kinds of stuff in it. So in San Jose, the duty manual, well, any police department, you can go look at their manual, number one, if they let you, and number two, and that may mean you may have to go to the department and ask to see it and then stand there and look at it, or at San Jose and some other police departments as well put their duty manuals online. And that's because, again, in San Jose, the Office of the Independent Police Auditor pushed to have this done. So if you just go to Google and you type in San Jose Police Department and come to their homepage, or type in Independent Police Auditor San Jose and go to that office's homepage, you can just then click duty manual, and then you can kind of see anything in it, mostly everything in it. Some of it's redacted because some of the information is confidential, but most of the 600 pages are there. And then there's a search box, and you just type in what it is you like to see. So the first issue is, why can't you see it? You can go maybe to another police department and they'll say, no, you can't see our manual of rules. Now, the reason that upsets me is that taxpayers, that's us, we pay the salaries of the police. And guess whose money paid for the development of the duty manual? We did. So that's ours. It belongs to the police officers, and it belongs to us. So I believe there is a right for the public to know what's in the duty manual, and I hope that anyone listening to this program, if you don't live in San Jose and live in a city that doesn't have their rules, book of rules, the police department's rules online, that you go and demand it, because I can't think of any legitimate argument to keep that away from members of the public. Now, why should you know what's in it? Because what's in it lets you know what police officers are obligated to do and not do. So for example, Terry, you're driving your car, you get stopped in San Jose by a police officer, and you don't feel you were treated very well. So you say to the officer, I want to see, what's your name and badge number? Well, the rule in San Jose is that a police officer, when asked for identification, must It's not a maybe or discretionary. Must give you the officer's name and badge number, either writing it down, him or herself, or giving you a department-issued business card. Now, you wouldn't know that, but if you went to the duty manual and type in identification, which any of your viewers can do for San Jose, there's the rule right there. So there are all kinds of rules on whether officers can search. There's rules on just about everything you can find, and that really informs how we act when we're interacting with the police.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's why it's so important. And I so appreciate you're getting this information out, why it's so important for members of the public to know you have, or I believe we all have a right to have this information.
That's great. This is awesome information. Thank you so much. So we have our work cut out for us.
Absolutely.
We really have our work cut out for us. So the next thing, we've talked a lot about policemen and their rights. I want to touch base on, or just elaborate on, me as a citizen. What are my responsibilities? What should I do as a citizen? And I've heard you speak before, and you mentioned something about don't be a rat.
Right.
And I love that because
Sure.
it lays it all out. If you can just talk more about what does that mean, don't be a rat, and what are my responsibilities as a citizen? What am I called to do?
Good. And I hope that what I say to you will be relayed by parents, grandparents who are watching this to their young people, to teens. This is really, really important.
Yes.
So the most frequent interactions between the police and civilians are traffic stops and pedestrian stops. So you're walking down the street, officer comes up, and you have an interaction, or you get pulled over for some sort of traffic violation. That's when the interactions happen. So it's, and if things aren't handled well, they can go downhill fast.
Absolutely.
And people can find themselves in handcuffs, sitting on a curb, all kinds of things, or in jail, right? So the key is we don't want our young people to get caught up in this criminal justice system, because once it gets its tentacles on them, it's really hard to get them out, right? So, and the first step toward getting entangled in the criminal justice system is that contact with the police. That's the first step. So I advise everybody, I don't care what age you are, to follow the rule of don't be a rat. And this is what applies anytime you have an encounter with a police officer. All right? So each of these, RAT, stands for something you shouldn't do. So R stands for run. Officer says, particularly the young people, hey, I need to talk to you. And the kid just jets off and runs, and they think it's real funny. It's not, because it's a crime. If you run when an officer has said, I want to talk to you, that's evading. That's a misdemeanor right off the top. And you'll get caught. And then yeah, I mean, that's what happens, all right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so don't run. So officer, I want to talk to you, you stop. Second is A, don't be a rat. A, don't argue. So an officer starts getting in your face and you're not liking this, or says you did something you didn't do not argue. Why? Because the officer has the gun, the officer has the power. So the idea is to be reasonable, be responsible, keep the voice down, and engage in a discussion only unless the officer is accusing you right there. I'm accusing you of a crime, then you shut your mouth. You don't argue, you don't say anything at all. You just say, I want to talk to a lawyer, all right? Third is T, right? R-A-T, touch. Never touch an officer. Don't put your hands, don't even think about it, because to do so, yet another crime or crimes. Could be battery, could be assault, could be resisting, it could be interfering. All of those are misdemeanors. Never, ever touch an officer. So basically, if you don't run, if you don't argue, act reasonably, and don't touch an officer, if the interaction goes okay and you're still not happy with how you were treated, then you go to the Office of the Independent Police Auditor. And if your police department doesn't have one, then you go right to the police department and ask for a complaint form. You can take it home. You don't have to fill it out there, and then file a complaint, right? Okay. So those are the basic things. Now today in San Jose, police officers are going to be wearing body cameras. Yes. So the dynamics are changing a little now, absolutely, right? Because I will tell you, the most effective device that has brought change and more transparency to policing are our cell phones. Because that's really what gave rise to the body cameras. People, citizens now have their cameras. And so let me just say this one last thing. The rule in San Jose, and now it's a rule within the whole state of California because the law was passed in January. Police officers have no right to take your cameras if you are taping them. No right at all. And even if they say, I want to have it, you do not have to give it up. So the only requirement is you can tape an officer if what's going on is in public, out on the street, and you're not interfering. If you're standing back far enough, they have absolutely no right, and it is the law, to take your camera or to, threaten any of that. Then that's when you file a complaint.
Okay, awesome. That's amazing information. I did not know that we can actually have our camera.
Absolutely.
And we're not doing anything wrong as long as we're not
That's right.
interfering or
In public.
in public.
That's
and
right.
It's taking place in public. Interesting, very interesting. So I want to talk about something that we have all heard on the internet or perhaps read on Facebook, and this is the Blue Lives Matter movement. I want you to talk a little bit more about the movement, what's happening behind it, and perhaps what are the implications for the policemen and the citizens.
Sure. So the Blue Lives Matter movement is really something called Blue Lives Matter laws that are now being considered in states all around the country. And one, in fact, has been passed in Louisiana. And it's in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, some people, unfortunately, because they're so uninformed, think that Black Lives Matter is some like anti-police thing, and it is not. It came about in response to the use of deadly and excessive force by officers against civilians, right? But for those who are uninformed and see the Black Lives Matter movement as hate-filled, there's this Blue Lives Matter laws that are now being proposed. One that has been passed, and I believe it's in Louisiana, makes it a hate crime if you end up in any kind of an altercation with the police. So if you resist arrest and let's say it gets accelerated where an officer punches you, you go down, or maybe you're resisting and pulling back, if you're charged with a crime like assaulting an officer, the prosecution can add a hate crime enhancement, which means if you're convicted of the assault and convicted of the hate part, then that's a longer jail or prison sentence. And by hate crime, I mean they're saying if you end up in any kind of an encounter, altercation that's not good with the police, they're deeming it to be a hate crime. That's it. So one police chief has actually said, I think that means also resisting arrest could be a hate crime. All right, so I think that's really, really bad. And I've heard some people say, all right, so if we're going to have these laws, shouldn't it be a hate crime the other way? That if you have a person who has been beaten by an officer, why not call that a hate crime? Well, the response from those who are supporting Blue Lives Matter laws is they don't even consider it. It's just not even on the table. I'm very concerned about this Blue Lives Matter law movement going around the country because we're going to see a lot more people caught up in the system and then doing some hard time just because they are interacting with the police.
Absolutely. So at this point, what do you recommend? Do you recommend that we just be aware of what's going on, or are there things that we can do, or just what do you recommend?
Sure. So here in San Jose, there's something called Coffee with a Cop.
Yes.
So there's a program where if you're interested, you can actually do these sit-downs and talk to police officers who, by the way, I've met many of them here in San Jose, good folks, and they took the job because they really want to do public service.
Absolutely.
And of course, there are always bad apples, and the bad apples are the ones that make things worse. But that's one thing. The other is to, if you haven't ever had maybe a presentation done by the Independent Police Auditor's Office, that office does outreach all over the city. All you have to do is call the office, and then they can come out and do a presentation at a school, at a church, at any kind of community groups to let people know more about what's going on in the city with police and about their rights.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This is all wonderful information, and I'm so excited to just get it out to the viewers, just what you can do as a citizen and the resources that we have right here at our fingertips, where it's just a simple internet search to know what's available to us. And the last thing, something that I want to talk a little bit about, and I'm so excited for you, and that is your new show that's coming up on Fox TV, and the show is called You the Jury. Could you just tell us a little bit more about
Sure.
that?
So first of all, it's not my show.
Okay, I
am in the
apologize.
show. That's no. I'm in the show. I am a judge in the show, and
Awesome.
it's a reality court show. It's not a judge show.
Okay.
And it's not Fox Cable News. It's the Fox Network.
Yes.
So that would be, locally, whatever it is here, Channel 2, whatever.
Right.
So it is giving the viewers a really different look at the court system. So these are cases, actual real trials that we actually try on TV. Real cases, absolutely, with some of the best lawyers in the country. And I preside over these trials, totally unscripted. No scripts here. So whatever happens in the courtroom, I just have to deal with the lawyers who are very high profile, very strong advocates. And the issues are cutting edge issues, legal, but also moral issues. So there's one case that involves religious freedom versus civil rights. And that's where, a gay couple, they're getting married and they want to have some food delivered by this person who says, no, I'm not going to do that because my religious belief says I can't be any way supportive of, gay marriage, same-sex marriage. And so you have these people who want to get married saying, well, we have civil rights. I mean, that, we have the right to do this and it is the law, right? So that's a really interesting issue. And so what's different about these cases is that the jurors are the viewers. So you watch this and you vote in real time on the verdict once you've heard everything, the evidence and the arguments on both sides. And by texting in a number, you vote and the votes count. And because the show airs first on the East Coast, because we're 3 hours after that, then it's the West area, the West region that gets really to decide. So if all the votes coming in from the East and the Midwest are one way, the West Coast votes could change that. So
Absolutely.
we basically have the last say in all of this.
Awesome.
And so it's exciting because it gives people, it's not silliness, it's the real deal. And it airs starting April 7th. That's a Friday night at 9 p.m. on Fox.
That is so exciting. I'm excited to watch and I'm excited to vote. I really get into these kinds of shows.
Good.
And so congratulations to you. And thank you once again for coming on Real Talk with Terry. This has been wonderful information that you have shared with us. And my hope is that people will take what you've shared and educate themselves on what their rights are as citizens, and not only what their rights are, but what their responsibilities are, because we as citizens, we do have responsibilities.
Right.
So I just want to leave you with, again, if you have any questions or if you need more information on anything that we've talked about as it relates to the Independent Police Auditor's Office, feel free to Google the information. If you want to know what the Bible or your Bill of Rights are in terms of what police are allowed to do or not do, feel free to go to what's called the Duty Manual. And again, if you want to learn more about Judge LaDoris Cordell and her show, feel free to look her up, your website.
It's coming. It'll be up pretty soon.
Okay, awesome. So her website is coming. Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk with Terry. And remember, yesterday is history, tomorrow a mystery. Today is a gift, which is why we call it the present. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
We want to make you aware of a really neat app that you can actually download on your smartphone, and it's called the Mobile Justice app, and the name of it is Mobile Justice CA. Again, you can download it on your phone, on your mobile device, and if you see police activity happening that you want to record, you can actually record it directly through this app. And when you hit send, it will go directly to the ACLU. So even if your phone is confiscated, or if for some reason an officer decides to delete the footage is already at the ACLU. So once again, for our safety, for your safety, if you're out and you see suspicious police activity, a really cool app to have on your phone is called the Mobile Justice app.
Hands in the air.